Hey everyone, Kim here at Olive City Homestead, Northern California, Zone 9B. And we have sun again, sort of. It's a little hazy, but this is so much better than the thick red smoke we've had for 3 weeks now since the fires hit Northern California big time, or at least around me. And yeah, this is so much better. And it's also about 35 degrees cooler than it was just 4 weeks ago when we had our 6-week heat wave of 105 to 115 degrees every single day. This is now only 67 degrees today. It's 9 a.m. It's going to warm up, but it's only predicted to go to 89, and that is really crazy cool for September in this location. But I'm not complaining. I'm just so happy to see some blue sky and sun again, despite the haze that's left over. It's so much easier to breathe now than it was just a week ago. So yeah, I don't want to, again, I'm not complaining. The fires have been devastating to so many people. Even my daughter's oncology camp, an hour and 20 minutes from here, burned down entirely, along with the town that was right next to it. It's just horrible, the devastation that's happened. But you know, we've learned in Northern California that we can rebuild, and we will rebuild. We'll be strong together, and we're already planning to go help the camp rebuild. And I know the people that have lost everything, they're going to be strong, and their family and friends are going to be around to support them, and we will move on as we do in this life when natural disasters like that hit. So anyway, back to today. It is transition time. We're going from the summer garden into the fall garden. And in Zone 9B, that is later than in other places, so I'm just getting started with that. I have pulled out a lot of plants, especially some of the thick vining plants, and made room for new plants. So I have some bare areas. I have some new transplants already growing for fall. And I also have some direct seeds that are still waiting to sprout that I just did a couple of days ago. So I'm pretty excited, especially now that the sun is peeking through every day. And hey, let's get going and see what we've got here on this mid-September garden tour. And thanks for joining me. Okay, so starting in this bed, I've got my artichokes coming back again, and they'll grow strong all winter and then fruit in the spring. And they are sending up some pups alongside of the main plants, which I'm planning to move those pups to somewhere else and start some artichokes in other places in the garden so that I can give some shade to other plants next spring. Now that's my ghost pepper plant, which is taking its time fruiting. I had a couple originally fruit, but then with the hot weather, the heat wave, and then the smoke, it sort of paused. Now peppers can be perennial here in Zone 9B pretty easily, so I'm hoping that starts fruiting now that it's cooled off and the smoke is dissipated. So this is a sad looking remains of a spaghetti squash plant. Just a couple leaves left on this vine. I cut everything else away, but I left just a little bit there to hopefully ripen that last spaghetti squash. I did get 4 big spaghetti squash from this particular plant, but it never looked great. So I don't know what it didn't like about here, but I mean, I've grown them before in a 1-gallon pot and it had done fabulous, so that's not the reason. But anyway, I did get 4 other big ones, and hopefully that'll ripen up a little bit. So one of the things I've done in the last few weeks is plant a few flowers amongst the vegetables. I love that look, the color popping out here and there, and it attracts more bees. So there's some Rudbeckia that I seeded, and it finally got big enough I transplanted it. Here we've got some yellow crookneck squash still going strong, and some okra. And oh, that blossom is about to come out, but it's not there yet. I just love okra blossoms, don't you? I've got some pink ones on another plant. This is another yellow crookneck squash, and I've been getting plenty of yellow crooknecks off of these in the last 2 weeks. So it's one plant that didn't seem to be affected by the heat or the smoke. Now this plant, if you can call it that, look at this sad thing. I think the squirrels or mice have been in here eating it. It's a cucumber, and boy, you know, everything loves the cucumbers. That's what I've discovered this summer. I never really grew a lot of cucumbers before, but this summer I've discovered I've got a tool, anything that I want, any cucumbers that I want to make it. So let me just hop over these vines. You know, it's a lot easier to get around now that I have taken out a lot of the vines. See, here's an Armenian cucumber plant, and there's a big cucumber I need to take off. And it looked as bad as the other one until I wrapped tulle around it. And now it's coming back. And I may put more tulle around it as it climbs, just so I can get some more cucumbers. I love those Armenian cucumbers. Here's where I planted a few more rudbeckia. And, oh yeah, there's some little baby delicatas. Now, I don't know if those are going to be ripe enough to eat, but when I cut out a vine, those were on it. And so, yeah, I need to take those in. And what have we got going here? Lemon cucumber plant, and there's a big lemon cucumber I need to get off, and it's still blossoming. I cut off a lot of, the kind of deadish, I call them deadish, not quite completely dead, but mostly dead, as in the Princess Bride, right? Vines, and now it looks like it's coming back. That's great. Okra, I have okra everywhere, and it's all volunteer. Oh, look what I see here. I see zucchini that I missed. I'm trying to do better this year about taking them when they're not too big. So there we go, a nice zucchini. I'll just set that down right here. Okay, so some of the vines, if they looked really healthy, I let them continue. And of course, the healthiest vines of all that are still trying to send out brand new fruits are the delicata squash. You know, this is the same plant. It's given me a ton already, and it has this huge one on it right there. Yeah, delicata squash. I called it a delicata. Okay. Mistake. That's what happens with old age. Amish pie squash. Okay, so I mixed up because I actually had two plants growing side by side here. That Amish pie squash, which I cut several vines off of and left the stuff that looked good. And then I actually took out the delicata this past week, like 2 days ago. And I see that like I said, forgot those. Anyway, yeah, the Amish pie squash, I did take out the vines that were spent. And I should take out this amaranth. It's entwined in this Amish pie squash though. So yeah, I will. I should get to it this week. But you know, I don't know. I might just leave this bed as it is because it's pretty. It's still doing well. It's still fruiting and it's still attracting the bees. So yeah, probably leave it. Oh, look, speaking of Amish pie squash, there's another one which is now visible because of what I did here. Now, this is one of my merit tree collards, and it's 1.5 years old. I planted it in February 2019, and over last winter, I planted it as a 3-inch transplant, and over last winter, it got 6-7 feet high at least, and I cut it back, and then it in the spring, after I cut it back, it went to seed, flowered and seed, beautiful yellow flowers, and those seed stalks were so big and long. Cut those back, and this thing bushed out. It had large, thick side shoots coming out, and they were almost horizontal, and they were going way past this vine over into this bed, and were tall as or taller than these stalks I've left. And I finally had to cut them back. So a few days ago, I cut them off. I took tons of cuttings from them. I used this plant because it was so thick. I mean, I can't even tell you. There was more than just the side growth that I cut off. I cut off a lot of stuff that was in the middle too. It was so thick, I couldn't get into it. And so it actually got bugs, which I've never had any plants in the 4 years of gardening I've been doing back here get bugs, except a few aphids here and there, you know, just randomly real small. Never had any kind of worms or any, you know, of the vine borers or any of these things you hear about. I suppose eventually I will, but I haven't. But there were bugs here, and I actually have a video that I'm, I just put it up recently that you could check out if you're interested in seeing how I handled the pruning of this. And oh my goodness, all the leaves that I checked over and there were no eggs on them. I used those in a project I'll show you in a minute. And then anything that had eggs, I got rid of, I threw away. And then the stalks and things I put in the compost. And I took so many cuttings for new plants. I think I have 25 cuttings that I kept. And that was, you know, I finally had to quit because I could have probably taken 100 cuttings. But anyway, I'm really happy with how it looks. If you hadn't seen it before, you'd think it looks really nice. Kind of bonsai-like. if you've seen it before recently, then it looks kind of naked. But, you know, I have experience with this now, and these will grow back so fast. It's like an ongoing necessary chore. So now I realize that I'll be more on top of it. And now that I've taken all that out, the Amish pie squash and this zucchini plant are more exposed to the sun. I think they're going to do better. Again, I moved in some flowers. So here we have some mums that are going to be blooming soon. And here's some agastache or however you pronounce it. I love these. This is a newer plant. I have this plant in oranges and oranges and yellows, and this one is pink and orange, and I really like that. And from seed I grew a bunch of echinacea and planted it in several places. And this from seed I transplanted recently. This is, can you tell? It's mustard. Yeah, red mustard. I'm really looking forward to having that. I've never grown it before, but I'm hoping it does well. Here's another one of my merit tree collards, and this one it doesn't have bugs, but I do need to prune it. It's got a really big side branch there that needs to go. It's not nearly as big and bushy as the other one, but it's still too big. All right, so I sort of cleaned up my cherry tomatoes here, but they're still they look kind of sparse. I'm not thrilled with them, but they're producing tomatoes still, and they taste good. So yeah, I'm gonna let that go. And asparagus. This winter, I'm gonna take those tubs out, and then tomatoes will come out, of course, and then I'm going to add more asparagus to this bed, make it a complete asparagus bed. That's my plans for that. This is my new bed. I showed it in my last tour, but it didn't really have anything going on. You might not see that there's anything more going on this time, but there is, because I planted beans. I'm trying to think of the name of them. I think it was the purple, royalty purple pod beans. It's one of the purple beans, pole beans, and runners. And so they're at the back. I was looking to see, I thought I saw some had broken. Oh, there we go. There's one that's broken through. Any more? I thought I saw some more when I was watering. Oh, no, don't see them. Well, I think they're going to be up in the next day or two. And the kiwi are looking pretty good after this area being weeded of the Bermuda grass that was in it. It looks good. There we've got a little bok choy going on right in there. Let's see how that does. And everything else in here is looking good. I am going to plant a few more things in here, but I've still got my yellow pear tomatoes going, and okra, and a little bit of snapdragons there in the middle. Some more okra there. That should do well for the next month or two. It's produced a ton, and I need to get more with cooking it is what I need to do. I've tried, and now I've got some recipes I actually like. I need to just get more on top of cooking it. This is a cucamelon, and we'll see how that does. It started taking off recently. There's some more flowers, Rudbeckia and otherwise. There's a Jimmy Nardello pepper, which has been growing finally, but it's still not producing much. I got a pepper or two off, but that's it. There's a blossom. Hopefully it will take off. The cherry tomatoes are just producing constantly. And of course with those, you just pick off the ones on the ground because that's when they're ripe. And you just take the little paper hull off, and there's your berry, and boy, are they good. But different, not what you would expect. Tangy. Combination of what I would think would be, you had a sweet cherry and a very tart tomato, and you mix them together. So this is one of the Amish pie squash. I think this one's probably ready. I'm really not sure with these squash when to know that they're ready. I know the whole thing about the brown curlicue, but I harvested one that way and it wasn't right. So I'm leaving them on until all the leaves die back. That's my new plan. So this bed I've got planted up with a bunch of transplants that I had seeded, and they are broccoli right there, and some more of the red mustard. Yeah. And my green onion row is still doing great. That's the Egyptian walking onions. Yellow pear tomatoes doing fine. My mint is doing well. This Amish pie squash here, you see that massive one, it had sent vines through the lemongrass, and actually it was starting to bother the lemongrass, so I cut that out finally. That's a sun sugar cherry tomato, and oh my gosh, these are so good. If you haven't tried growing these, they have a taste unlike any other cherry tomato I've ever grown, and I've grown a lot. So I'm telling you, these are the best. Aren't they, ducks? Yep. Hi, girls. Isn't it fortunate that I grow greens right next to the fence? Because then you guys can have some, huh? They're so happy. Aren't you, girls? There you go. Bye. My cherry tomato jungle that is, I think, too much in the shade or too crowded or whatever. These are, okay, you're not going to believe me, but it's God honest truth. I planted 2 yellow pear tomatoes here, and it's grown into this jungle. But not a lot of tomatoes. Well, actually, there are a ton of tomatoes in there. They're not ripening. I don't know if it's because of the heat we had, the smoke we had, or the fact that it gets afternoon shade from 2 p.m. on. I don't know. Another merit collard from a cutting that's doing great. More yellow pear tomatoes. More lemongrass, which makes fabulous tea. I love it. Yeah, more yellow pear tomatoes. You might wonder why I have so many yellow pear tomatoes. It's because they volunteered. Yes. And more merit collard that I grew from cuttings. Yes, girls. There you go. Is that good? Okay, bye. Green onions. Everywhere you see green onions, those are Egyptian walking onions, which are so easy to propagate because they send out those little bulbils on the top a couple times a year, and you just pop them off and plant them wherever you want. And I have so many growing now, and they are absolutely delicious. Really, really, gotta try them. Well, hi, BB. How are you doing, BB-8? Yeah, gonna come with me? Okay, what have we got going here? Let's see. Swiss chard. My Swiss chard's doing really well. These were the young ones, and they're starting to get bigger. And this was my experiment one. You can tell by the size of this trunk. It's like a tree. And I cut it back so many times from seed, like I can't even tell you, 5 or 6 times. And now, not from seed, from when it went to flowers, what I mean to say. I cut that back and cut that back, and it just kept growing more and more flowers. But eventually it stopped, and now I have fresh growth all over it, and I think it's going to be great over the winter. I love Swiss chard. If you haven't tried it, it's so delicious. And I say if you haven't tried it because so many things I never tried, I didn't have as a child or even as a young adult. And now that I grow them and try them, I love them. So you know what that is, more okra. Okra is so easy to grow. In this particular bed, I have, I probably had like 20, 30, 40, I don't know. I didn't count them. Volunteers of okra. And I pulled some out, but I let a lot grow. And now that I've been thinning it, the ones that were smaller are starting to shoot up. So, yeah, I'm happy with that. This vine here is all one plant, and I've cut back so many of the vines off this one plant. It's a pumpkin, cornfield pumpkin, and there is like the 5th pumpkin it's growing. I've already harvested long since the first 4 large ones. That one's like medium, and it just keeps sending out new growth. I'm thinking that might be its last, but you never know with this thing. Here's my what has become my zinnia bed. Again, all volunteers from one plant I planted a couple of years ago in here. I do have it looks like it seeded itself in there too. I do have another yellow pear tomato in there that's not doing so hot, but it's going. And a new plant I planted a few weeks ago. It's a squash of some kind. This bed, I've taken some plants out, so I'm going to put a few transplants in that I've been growing from seed right in here in this little spot. Otherwise, oh, got some yellow crooknecks I need to take off of there. So that's a yellow crookneck. Got an okra here, and I told you Oh, this one already bloomed. This one, it does deep maroon type blooms. It's just gorgeous. Oh, there's another zucchini. I thought I got them all yesterday. I didn't see this, or I would have got it. It's not big, thick, but it's really long. Okay, so that's another one. I'm gonna have some zucchini bread maybe today. Okay, set that there for now. So yeah, zucchini. And my sprouting broccoli starting to send me out some nice broccoli shoots. So these produce these stalks with these mini broccoli heads that are so delicious, and all the leaves are delicious too. Even before it sends these out, the leaves taste so good. Now this is a plant that is perennial if you keep it that way or take it into a greenhouse if you're in a cold climate. So it's a year and a half old, and it's producing, and now that we're going into cooler weather, I think we're going to get a lot more. So I've cleaned up my, let's see if I can do this, my Sweet 100 cherry tomatoes here. I'm not actually sure those are Sweet 100s. I planted two kinds, and now I'm thinking that those other kind of scrawny looking ones were the Sweet 100s. These get bigger as they grow, and last tour, the 1st of September, there was barely anything on this as far as red, and that's because my excuse me, that's so good, breakfast. My adult kids had come and visited, and they had cleaned it out. And then the heat and the smoke kind of decimated it, and it looked like it was totally dying off. But I came in here a week ago, and I cleaned out most of the brown leaves, and I propped up all this new growth because it's sent out a ton of new green growth and new blossoms. So I think I'm going to have another go-round of nice red cherry tomatoes, so that will be nice, very nice. Okay. This is a bed I took a ton of stuff out of. And now I'm going to be planting, well, actually, I already direct seeded, and they haven't come up yet because I just did it a few days ago, pepper plants. It's hot enough they should sprout and grow well, unless we keep having weird cool weather like we've been the last couple of days. But I think it's going to warm up again. And those two pepper plants are finally growing and producing, and I've been taking peppers off both of those. But yeah, I had a bad pepper year this year, really. But that's okay. I had other good things going on. This little area down here, I don't know what I'm going to plant in it yet. I'm going to do the last of my seed planting this week. And then I'll be done. I say that slowly because I'm not sure. I'm never quite done around here since I grow year round. So again, I took out the yellow pear tomatoes that were on this half of the bed. And I already have planted parsnip seeds in here. So I'm going to be going parsnips for the first time. I'm excited about that. Those are my big tomatoes are starting to ripen finally. This plant, those two plants I really wasn't thrilled with. They were supposed to be really heat resistant. I can't say that they did a good job of that, but now that it's cooling off, they're finally starting to do something. And in here, I took out almost everything. This had a ton of melons in it, and gave us so many melons. And I left just a little bit of the vine because I've still got what is this? It's an Emerald Gem melon ripening, and a little one down here. And I took several more off before when I cut the vines off, so that was good. And I've got some flowers, some verbena, and some violas in there. I love that purple and orange viola. I have that in a few places on the property, and you know, they spread and they're easy to propagate that way, and they're perennial here. I planted a couple of dragon tongue bush beans right here. One has come up. I think the other two came up, but were eaten. That's my problem with beans. I often have to replant them several times because of that. And the other thing that I have planted is that entire side there and over to here is all been planted in carrots. So I'm looking forward to those coming up in the next few days. Oh, look at this beautiful bush. Don't you love it? And as we go into fall, it's supposed to turn all these fall colors. And then in the spring, it's these green colors with that tinge of red. I love this. I picked it up the other day. It's called, I haven't planted it yet because I have to decide. When I get a plant like this, I move it around a few times and decide where I want it. It's called Love Child Sweet Spire, flowering shrub, Full sun to part shade. It gets 3 to 4 feet tall. It does send out these, as you can see, little white blossoms, but it's not about the blossoms. It's about the foliage. It's called an let's see if I can get in there. An IT, or Itea, I think I'm saying that because of IKEA. IT Virginica, Bell T1, Love Child, Sweet Spire. So I just love that, and I can decide where to put it. All right, so I've got this watermelon vine hanging on, and I believe because I noticed that, here we go, I'll show you this. You know what they say about the curlicue going brown and hard. Well, that one is. So I think this is done, this round melon. I don't know what this is because my dad brought me this plant. And he never knows what he planted. So, but what I've been doing in these, and this melon plant is gone, and I'm going to take the vine out. But what you can see growing there is a bunch of radishes I planted, and I planted some in there too. You can see coming up. And in here where I have a few cuttings rooting, you can see the new leaf coming up there. Well, I also planted a bunch of radishes. And over here, in addition to my little melon plant that's not really doing much, I've got cuttings going that are sending up new growth, so they're taking. And look, I've got my beans coming up. I'd have to look at my book to see what those are. They're probably royal purple pod, because that's the kind I grew alongside the fences. I've got some coming up here too, so that they can run up it. And then I'm going to plant transplants of something there. I'm not sure what. I have a couple of things I might put there. So this bed got some what are supposed to be large tomatoes. We'll see how they do in this weird weather tomato year I've had. I've gotten a lot of tomatoes off of them, but then they paused. So they're looking better now and sending out new growth and new blossoms, just like those red cherry tomatoes. So I'm hoping that means I'm going to get some big tomatoes. And then the bed itself, I'm going to be planting in a few days, maybe even tomorrow, some more parsnips and carrots in here. Okay, what else? Oh, my new project. So in my September 1st tour, this bed, all you saw was the bottom layers, but since then I've added more layers and it's almost done now. It's pretty high. I don't know if you can tell, but it's a high mound. It's a hugelkultur mound raised bed. That's what I call it. It's a combo. And the only thing I have left to do to it before I plant it up is I'm going to put some large rocks all around the perimeter and maybe nestle in some flowers in the nooks and crannies of those rocks. And I'm going to plant a variety. Probably there'll be 6 or 7 kinds of plants in here. And I'm going to try to make it a totally perennial bed. So we'll see about that. So it's time to harvest my golden delicious apples. And I have probably 100 on here. So whoop! And they're ready. They just fall off in my hand. So I eat those for breakfast every morning. And this tree really needs to come out. It's dying, and I've cut back some of the branches, trunk branches. It's like a 3-trunk tree, and it's totally diseased. And I know I need to cut it down. But what has happened is I've let a lot of young growth come out on the sides, and it's just fruiting like crazy. And I've picked a lot of it already, but I need to finish picking. So that's on the agenda for this week. And here's my herb bed, starting with my lemon balm, which I need to finish cutting back some of the stalks, but it's doing great. Lots of good fresh growth coming up on it. Makes great tea. Got a random volunteer tomato there. Highly doubt it will do anything, but we'll see. Could surprise me. And some violas I planted. Tricolor sage. Been cooking with that. Some beautiful oregano. It's like it never loses these blooms. These have been here since March. That's a long time. And we have nice oregano at the bottom. I know, I eventually do need to clip those back, but I'm enjoying them for now, and so are the bees. Got some green sorrel, some echinacea I planted there, some winter savory that I'm looking forward to using in some stews. This was the Armenian cucumber. I got to pull it out. I cut all the vines off the fence the other day, and I've got to pull that out. You know, I have a video on that cucumber that I had tooled it all up because something was climbing the fence and eating it after it had produced some great cucumbers, and I was so sad. I tried to save it, and the tool did work actually in keeping the varmints off, but it didn't like growing on the fence. What was happening was the vines were entangling in the fence instead of twining up it. The leaves were entangling. It just didn't do well there. I'm not sure why, but this basil plant's doing very well, and I'm really trying to stay on top of picking off the flowers, and I'm getting so much better at that. And so my plant has bushed out, and I still have room for improvement, but I'm really happy that I'm learning new habits as far as keeping that basil going as long as possible. And thyme, and more violas, and more Egyptian walking onions, and oregano going nuts, growing like crazy, more thyme. And we've got down here coming up more Egyptian walking onions, and coming up from an old oregano plant, and looks like a volunteer tomato. Still have some sunflowers going on. There we've got, that's a rudbeckia I planted, more green onions, and that's a parsley trying to come back, and lemon verbena, which makes such fabulous tea and propagates with cuttings from the woody part. I need to take a few cuttings. So this is, look at that stalk. It's like a tree, isn't it? That's because it's a tree kale. This is actually a purple tree kale, although it's not purple at the moment. It is. I'll show you. I got 3 purple tree kale last February, and I'll show you the other 2 in a minute. So this one was just moved here. And I know it looks sparse, but actually it looks really healthy. Look at that good new growth, and it's standing upright. So I just transplanted this. I dug it out of the ground. And the thing is that it was in a spot that it was not doing well in. It was in the shade too much from my olive trees out in the olive orchard. And that was an experiment. And I learned, first of all, it didn't do well in the shade. I mean, those were fine in partial shade, but it was too much. And secondly, squirrels kept coming up on it, and this was much taller. This one I let get tall. It was like 6-7 feet tall, and I left it there. And the problem was that squirrels kept climbing on it. My hand's going everywhere because I'm demonstrating. And they would just munch it off. And they had eaten the leaves off several times, and then it would regrow leaves, and then they would eat them off again and break more branches. So because you can see a lot of this sends out new branches all the time, and they can't support a squirrel, and so they were breaking. So I said, well, it's going to die in there, and I'm certainly not getting anything out of it in there. So I dug it up and put it here because you can see at the top of the steps there, I have 2 tree kale, and those are its sisters or brothers or whatever. They were the 3 amigos that I got last February, and 3-inch transplants that I bought from Project Tree Collard in the mail. Purple tree kale. And anyway, it's come back since I planted it about a week ago. I'm so happy. So this is my little flower bed I have against my steps that I put in, and I've got osteospermum and alyssum. These are all perennial. Some recent plantings are these. These are yarrow summer wine. You can see the tag there. I do seed most of my flowers, but occasionally when I see something like this, I can't resist. I just love that color. And yarrow, I've always wanted to grow some yarrow. Now these, I moved here just now, actually before the tour. It's the only prep I did for the tour. These are cuttings, as you can see, from very small ones to a bigger one, and they've all done well. And that's how they grew. I mean, in 10 days, that's all fresh growth. So they each had 2 or 3 leaves on them when I planted them, and those all eventually died off, but it was enough to get them through to get roots and grow new growth. And now those are going to be 6 brand new, I can't even count, 5 brand new plants. So I'm really pleased with that. Gazania bush, not blooming right now because those bloom in the sun. Once it gets a little sunnier and hotter today, those will all open up. Real bright orange. Alyssum attracting the bees in. And I have some random popcorn here growing. I love the color of these. Look at how beautiful that is. We'll see if anything comes of that. That was just for fun. And got a little bit of rudbeckia down there, more alyssum, more gazania, and my tree kales, which I've staked up to be straight, and they're just so beautiful. I'm really looking forward to this winter. I mean, these are good year-round. They taste delicious year-round, but this is sparse for them. In the winter is when they bush out and get tall and get huge. Their leaves will like triple in size, and they start tasting sweeter, so they're even more delicious, and it's just wonderful. Gonna start harvesting some of my lemons as they ripen up. You can see those that yellow one there, and those are turning yellow. I'm really excited about this. First time I'm gonna have ripe lemons, or any lemons, off my lemon tree. It's really weighed down, but all the branches that those lemons are on are thick, so none of them are in any danger of breaking, I'm happy to say. And after I harvest these, I will cut back some of these long branches. Isn't that an interesting zinnia? I don't usually like striped flowers, and that's like the only one in the bunch like that. The rest are all orange and different shades of orange. And white. So I love that. It's like I'm choosing to be my own kind of beautiful. I just wanted to give you a glimpse of one of my little back patio garden beds, because it's totally different from the other part of the garden that I show you. It's in shade until noon, and I have growing here very well for several years garlic chives, which are now in flower, and I leave that. They still taste great when they're in flower, and then you have all this free seed, plus the flowers are so pretty. And then I have purple fountain grass. And in there, when the purple fountain grass isn't so big in the spring and summer, you can see I've got other flowers that bloom at different times. So I have the purple salvia, and I have some zinnias and some dahlias that bloom off and on. Those dahlias are about to bloom soon. And lantana. And in this little corner has Egyptian walking onions, which I've harvested at least 3 times this year already, and so then the new growth comes up. They just keep regrowing. Some more garlic chives. These are taller because they've been here a little longer. Bees love them, of course. And back there I've got some more, let's see, white alyssum and purple salvia, and some snapdragons and some echinacea. And oh, that dahlia is about to bloom too. And this is Mexican heather, which is really pretty. It gets even prettier in the winter, but it struggles through the summer heat because it's in the shade in the morning. And oh, let me show you my dahlia over here. So this is what the other dahlias will look like when they blossom. It's the same family, and I just propagate them off of this mother plant here. And here are some of those mini merit collared rootings I told you I was doing. Still got some sunflowers going, and my favorite is still the orange ones. I just love those, and the bees are still attracted to them. Squirrels probably, they're the bane of my existence currently, have been climbing up and breaking off some of the branches, but the sunflowers are still going strong. And in this bed I planted red noodle beans. Mixed results. I'm gonna have to replant. There's one that came up right there, but behind that dianthus, but for the most part, and those are some old beans that came back to life again, but this whole section did not. Well, okay, it came up. They all sprouted several days ago, just like that one on the end, but something came along and ate them all. So I'm going to replant tomorrow, the next day, and I'm going to protect them with little cups for the first week. My geranium plant coming back. I just love this geranium. I don't like all geranium, but that color, it's hard to beat that color. And it struggles through the summer and then gets gorgeous in the winter. But on this side, I will have to replant some, but I think I got 6 or 7 that came up down there. Yeah. So I've got some coming up. So what I'm going to do, of course, I put this wire behind here to help me trellis the beans up, but it stops about right there. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to string some yarn as an experiment back and forth down from one end to the other, a couple of rows of yarn up to the wire, and see if I can get the new bean plants to help them to vine up there till they reach the wire. So yeah, next year I'm going to plant more sunflowers, and I'm going to put tulle around the base of them, so that should keep the squirrels from climbing up and trying to eat them all. I have a friend who she had grew some giant sunflowers, and when she had like 6 or 7, she sent me a picture of them. And then the very next day, she came outside and every sunflower was gone, like literally gone. She couldn't even find any trace of them. But when I saw the tops of them, I knew it was squirrels. So yeah, I'm gonna have to use tulle at the base because they don't bug my plants that I put tulle on, so I'm just gonna have to invest in tulle. Thanks for joining me today, everyone. If you like this video, garden tour, and if you would like other videos with easy gardening ideas, you know, gardening anyone can do. If I can do it, you can too. And simple tips for simple living, then go ahead and hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. That way you'll know whenever I upload new content, which I do 3 times a week. I'd love to have you join the family. So what you waiting for? Let's go.